Father Connor Danstrom joins us via Skype now from Chicago, where he serves the Archdiocese in a parish and has been hosting a podcast since 2014. Father, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me. Hi, Bishop.
Hi. So you have to tell me about the podcast, because I know Kelsey wanted to talk to you because she listens to your podcast all the time as a fan. Tell us about the podcast and what you're trying to do with it.
Yeah, so me and two of my friends from seminary started the podcast about 5 years ago. I was a deacon at the time. It was just before I was ordained a priest. And my two buddies, Mike and Rob, now Father Mike and Father Rob, were, I think, in first theology, so they were 3 or 4 years away from being ordained. And my brother, who would sometimes host me and my seminarian friends over at his house, suggested it. He was a listener to podcasts, and he would hear us telling stories and sharing graces about what it was like to prepare for priesthood and stuff. And he said, you guys, people don't understand this life. People don't see seminarians or priests in their element a lot of times. So maybe you should start a podcast where you just kind of record your conversations, you talking about the stuff you talk about, the things you're interested in, not just seminary, not just religion per se, but everything that's going on in your life. The fact that you're normal people, that you have this divine call. And so it kind of started that way. We just sort of put a microphone up in our dorm room at the seminary and posted it online, and people started listening. So the rest is history.
Hey, Connor, it's great to have you on the show today to see a happy priest and one who is using technology to continue to introduce people to Jesus Christ. And speaking of that, it's our understanding that your dad experienced a conversion, and that was a catalyst for your vocation. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely, yeah. So my dad grew up Protestant, not in a Catholic household. My mother was Catholic, so she raised us in the faith. She got us baptized, all of us boys and my younger sister. And then when I was a teenager, my dad, who grew up Protestant, but by that time had basically become an atheist, he decided out of the clear blue sky, it was partly a priest that was coming to Mass every Sunday from the seminary to celebrate Mass at our parish. His homilies and his friendship sort of got my dad to awaken to faith and decided to go through RCIA, and at Easter Vigil became a Catholic officially. And you may know converts in your own family or in your own life that all of a sudden they've chosen to be Catholic and they have a certain zeal that us cradle Catholics don't have. So every Sunday after Mass, me and my dad, on his urging, would read the Bible together and sort of go through some of the gospel stories or parables and talk about what they meant. And it was just a huge moment in my life. I was about 14 or 15 years old, to awaken to the whole meaning of Christianity, that it's not just be nice or be a good person or do what your parents tell you to do, but sort of the whole meaning of the Jesus event became alive to me through my dad. So,
Well, Three Dogs North, the podcast, why is it so important, and Bishop touched on it, that we in the church today are on all these media platforms to reach out? And as I said, Kelsey, who is a young lady, that we reach these younger people.
I personally think so. I'm in Newman ministry now. I'm at a campus in Chicago, University of Illinois in Chicago. So I deal with young people every day. I did while I was in the parish. I was in a parish for 4 years before that. And the young priest is always in charge of youth ministry. So I've had my finger on the pulse a little bit, and I'm only in my 30s still, so I'm relatively young as a priest go, of what's going on in the younger generation and what are the hungers. And I think that number one on the list is communion or community, feeling like you belong or knowing where you belong, and therefore your identity and your mission in life all comes from your relationships. And I think a lot of people feel isolated, feel cut off from the herd and having to make their own identity out of nothing. So they look to the internet, they Google things like, why am I so depressed, or where can I find meaning in life? And a computer is not going to tell you that. But there are people on the internet and communities on the internet that can, I think, share the good news of Jesus Christ, the good news of something that happens in real life, which is redemption, salvation, communion in the church. So the church has to be in these places that are kind of ephemeral and not really real. But if we are there having these conversations about the deeper things and proclaiming Jesus Christ in ways that are legible to people or attractive to people, I think they're hungry for it and they're there. You know, even if they're not coming to our buildings, coming to our churches, or coming to Mass, they're on the internet. They're in these spaces, so we need to be there.
And what does a young priest in Chicago who's a podcaster do on the 4th of July?
Going to see my folks. Going to see the fireworks in my hometown up north.
Nice.
Where can people find out more about your ministry and your podcast, Father?
Well, the Newman Center at UIC is jp2newman.org, jp2newman.org. That's our website. I podcast the homilies too every Sunday, and we have events here at the Newman Center. And then the podcast is 3dogsnorth.com. That's all spelled out, THREE, dogsnorth.com. You can subscribe to the podcast there.
Father, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today.
Truly.
Happy 4th
Thanks,
of July.
Guys. Happy 4th.
Thank you.
Bye, Connor.
I appreciate it.